Greetings everyone, welcome back to Blade Bias. Today, I know I already did kind of a Blade Show recap, but I realized after I stopped recording that video that I didn't really talk about the Balisongs that I flipped. It was mostly about the people that I met and the experiences that I had, which is fine because that's usually the best part of Blade Show and the part that I look forward to and remember the most. But I do still like to make a point to talk about the different booths that I saw and how awesome they were or what really stood out to me. So in this video, while I'm flipping my Orion V2, kind of still gathering my thoughts on it for the follow-up video, I did want to talk about some of the... I see my headphones have come unplugged. Some of the booths of Blade Show, the Balisongs of Blade Show, because they were just as impressive and just as memorable as some of the people that I met there. Starting off with the obvious one, based on what I'm flipping, LDY had some new stuff off at the table. The Sirius V 4.5 being just a slight incremental upgrade of the Sirius V4, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, actually really surprised me. I enjoyed those Balisongs a lot more than I thought I would. Specifically, the trainers felt really nice in the hands. And the prices weren't crazy. I want to say that they were only asking like 120 to 140 for the Sirius V 4.5s, which now do actually feature a textured thing on the blade, which is super, or on the handles, like they're actual textures and things to dig your fingers into. And it's super nice, and I really enjoyed it. But the star, oh, actually, the Kite, the AL Kite V2 as well, the trainer, just as much as of an upgrade as the live blade is. The trainer flips really well. They had some cool like G10 marbled, like blue and black kind of scales as well that were really nice. But the trainer of the Kite AL, it does everything that the live blade does. It just brings the balance far more in line with what I would want, out of a Balisong like that, and I really did enjoy it. But the absolute star of the LDY booth was the LDY Answer, which is of course a collaboration with Will Hirsch. They all sold out pretty much immediately, so I wasn't able to get one despite them actually being on my list of things that I wanted to try and maybe buy if I enjoyed it. But it impressed me a lot more than I thought it would. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I just mean that Will's taste and balance historically has been kind of the opposite of mine. Most of the things in Will's collections that he's previously said were his like favorite things ever, you know, like the Adam Heibel knife that he had and the Stitch Steel Alien that he had and all of this, were Balisongs that I found myself not enjoying as much. Even sometimes like the Vault Pro I don't think the Vault Pro is a bad Balisong at all, but it just kind of doesn't do what I want it to do balance-wise. Or, I shouldn't say what I want it to do. It doesn't do what I prefer balance-wise. So I was kind of thinking that the answer was going to be the same, but I had heard so many good things about it going into Blade Show that I just had to check it out. And I'm glad I did, because man, that thing flips so much better than I really expected to my preferences. I knew it was going to flip well. I'm not saying that Will has a bad taste in Balisongs or that Will is incapable of making a good Balisong. Not at all. I'm just saying that Will's balance preferences are usually a lot more handle biased than I find myself enjoying in my Balisongs. And the answer was a very nice departure from that. Now, he did tell me that you can go heavier weights and all of this stuff to make the answer more handle bias like that, but I'm very happy that you also have the option to not, and I really did enjoy both the look of it, the flipping of it, everything. The green specifically that they had on demo was like this deep kind of cyan blue mixed with green. It was one of the most beautiful green anos that I have ever seen. So LDY really did put in the work this year, and their booth was a standout. And speaking of green, Machine-Wise was selling and auctioning a green Marin. Yes, the return of the Marin was teased at Blade Show at the Machine-Wise booth, which is super cool. The Marin never was one of my favorite designs of theirs, but it is one that I wanted to see come back just because so many people have loved that thing. And, you know, if they bring back the Marin, it might be a path to bringing back some of the other old designs that I really love from Machine Wise. But I'm not going to get my hopes up, don't get me wrong. That was awesome. The auction stuff that they made were awesome. They had a bunch of Totoris, which were amazing. The Sonoras, the Mojaves. The Machine Wise booth is always someplace that I spend a lot of time because even if you're not getting anything, they just have a special way of worming themselves into your brain and making you think, well, what if I did? What if I did part with $900 to buy a folding knife? Every time I pick up a Sonora, I think of that. I'm probably not going to do it anytime soon, but it makes me think about it, and that is kind of impressive in and of itself because I'm not a folding knife guy. But the most impressive thing at the Blade Show, or at the Machine Wise booth, was the Damascus. Oh my gosh, the Damascus Sliff T and the Damascus Seraph. Now, unfortunately, I did have to pinch my wallet closed so that I didn't go home with a $1,200 Damascus Machine Wise knife. But let me tell you that those knives were speaking to me like the Green Goblin mask in a big, big way. You'll probably see, if you went to Blade Show, there was a good chance that I was standing around the Machine Wise booth just thinking. And there's a good chance that in the background of a few videos, you might even see the same thing of me just kind of standing at the table and going, what if I did though? What if I did though? Who knows? So Machine Wise, they also had these little slider things. Not my cup of tea, but very fun to fidget with. They were like titanium with these Ultem kind of spacers and magnets, and they were pretty fun to push back and forth and kind of fidget in your hands with. So that was pretty cool. Otherwise, pretty standard Machine Wise stuff. But it was great to see them in the Balisong area again. Unfortunately, Squid didn't have their usual like Balisong hangout area. They just rented enough for their tuning booth this year, but that extra space was taken by Machine Wise, and can I just say I was very happy to see them with the rest of the Balisong people, which meant that we didn't have to, go foraging into the main room just to find the Machine Wise booth. So that was pretty cool. Another booth that really stood out to me was the Andrew Myers booth, because it was kind of a two-in-one thing. I think they were in the same booth, but it was Soulbound and it was Andrew Myers right next to each other. Soulbound making Balisongs like the Kismet and the Fate Maker, which is just an extremely metal name. And I enjoyed those. I enjoyed those Balisongs more than I thought I was going to. Like, looking at them, you get like a very heavy handle bias kind of old flipper look. But they're actually really light and agile, and they look cool, and there were cool anos. A bit above my price range for a Balisong. I think they started at like $1,000, but still cool to see nonetheless. But Andrew Myers, their booth was real nice this year. Obviously, I think their booth was very nice this year because I came home with, a little something, and it really impressed me. I was actually just planning on buying a Peon. I loved Ted so much that I was like, I gotta try and track one down at Blade Show, and they had a bunch, but unfortunately they also had a bunch of Aeons, and they had a bunch of other things on their table to demo, and yeah, I bought an Aeon. Now, I'm not gonna reveal the price on this just yet, because that's something that I want to save for the video that I make on this thing. But suffice it to say, this is one of my new this is one of my new value picks at its price range for the whole hobby. Like, the value on display here is incredible, and his whole booth was super, super cool. I'm going to save talking about that specifically for when I talk about the Aeon video, just because I don't want to spoil a lot of the stuff that I'm going to get into in that video. But suffice it to say, I also stood at the Andrew Myers booth for a very long time. Probably weirded Andrew and his dad out a little bit too much, but I did ultimately spend my money there, so I think we're all good. It was a great booth. They had some great stuff to show off. There were also some other heavy hitters in the Balisong community that I wasn't personally terribly interested in, just because the knives are a little bit outside my price range, from Paul and Acid Works and JK Designs. Cool stuff there as usual. I didn't spend a ton of time there just because of time constraints, unfortunately. But there was still some cool stuff. Obviously, the Zyzix is a Balisong I made a video on right after I came back from Blade Show. I recorded that like a month and a half ago, So at this point, I kind of don't even remember what I said in that video. But it's always cool to see the Zyzix. I think there was a new blade design or something like that. And then the JK stuff was typical JK stuff. Not my cup of tea, but still cool to see there. There was also Buffness, fellow YouTuber, the Buffness Flips, with his company Freedom Fabrications, showing off their design, the flagship, I think it was. Yeah, flagship. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. It was a very different experience than what it looks like when you're holding it. I honestly, I picked up the Bowie one first. I honestly thought it was a Kraken rehandle. The blade definitely reminds me of like a Bowie Kraken blade, but it flipped nice. It wasn't the experience that I was expecting. It was super light, actually. The G10 felt good, which is nice to see that he improved the G10, because I believe he was the one who manufactured the scales on the Zika that I was a little bit harsh on a few months ago. So it was nice to see that the G10 has improved out of his shop. That's always good. And then finally, we can't talk about Blade Show. Actually, no. Before we get to that company, there were a few like unexpected hitters kind of just scattered throughout the show. I think there was TOA Balisongs made a few that were super cool, including one that Cream Soda bought that was like this ridiculously long. It almost put the Kuno to shame in terms of length. I don't remember what it was called, but it was like this $150 G10 Balisong that was just like super cool and flipped really interestingly. And then there was also the Tuya blade. What was that? What was that thing called? Give me 1 second while I think about it. Let me pull up the picture, because this brand I had never heard of before. I didn't know they made Balisongs. I didn't know that, this was a company that produced things. So when I went over to their booth and I tried what they had out, I didn't have any expectations whatsoever. And then I flipped it and I was like, holy crap. This actually, this is kind of worth it. This is crazy, crazy good. Because I think all of their trainers were $150. And it was like, damn, these flip really well for a company that I have never heard of. Unfortunately, my phone is being ridiculously slow because I'm doing like 8 software updates at one time. It's a long story. But let me try and find the picture I took of this booth. There it is. Tuya Knife. Tuya. Normally a folding blade company, I believe, but made a few Balisongs. This really interesting one with like it was like a figure 8 blade, and it was like anodized so that it looked rainbow. And they actually had Teflon coated stuff, which was interesting because as far as I know, Nibali's is the only one that's even attempted that. So they were like really tapped in to some of the later Balisong, or some of the more recent Balisong innovations, despite being a brand that I've literally never heard of. So that was interesting. And then there was also the Rivery Manufacturing booth, which makes this guy that Brandon and I have showed so much, which isn't necessarily a booth that Balisong people would normally be interested in, but the guy working the counter was actually a Balisong flipper, showed us his Totori that he bought, recognized me when I was just standing and looking at the booth without me even saying anything or flipping a Balisong, which was kind of crazy. And the stuff that they make is just so fidgetable and fun. I love these things. And they're kind of a hit. They were a hit last year with the Balisong people. But all of that, and we can't talk about Blade Show without talking about the big kahuna of the Balisong hobby, Squid Industries. Squid Industries is usually a huge player at Blade Show because they have prototypes and they have stuff that they're taking feedback on. There's a lot of exciting stuff to see. Unfortunately, this year it wasn't necessarily that level. They had some heavy hitters, don't get me wrong. The Andrew Myers Tsunami collab that they had was gorgeous and stunning and incredible, and probably the one tsunami I would ever actually want to buy. They also had their Hom X Squid Industries collab, which in my opinion flipped better than I was expecting given how thin the tip is. Had much more tip weight than you would think when you looked at it. Unfortunately, the price was just too high for me to even consider wanting to buy one. I think they wanted $350 for it, which is fair. Like the Peon is the same price at that point, and they're both aluminum Balisongs. But I don't know, it didn't really grab me as much as I was hoping a Hom collab with Squid was, especially because you had to like pay extra, I think, for the latch and for a few like extra spacers that could go where the latch was. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And then Squid also had a titanium surf prototype, their folding knife that was pretty cool to check out. Otherwise, though, not a ton that I was super interested in from Squid. Oh, there was also like this really cool, like tie-dye blue and brown scaled Nautilus. I don't even know how to describe it. It was super cool. If you were there, you saw it, but it was like this. It was like just like someone dropped dye, just drip by drip of blues and browns and blacks all over Nautilus scales. And it looked really cool, actually. And then they also did the return of the Damascus Kraken. They had Damascus Tonto Kraken blade on their glide handles, which I will say, I liked the glide Bowie Kraken. I love the glide Tonto Kraken. It is excellent. Probably one of my favorite flipping Krakens that I've tried in quite a while, which is saying a lot because I think there's a lot of good flipping Krakens out there. Not something that I would get. My eyes are still squarely set on like a V1 Tonto. If I could ever get one of those, man, I would love to own a V1 Tonto Kraken. That would be super sick. But still, I love the glide handles, especially on that Tonto blade. I don't know. I would assume that the Damascus Kraken sold out, but I actually didn't see anyone who bought one. Like, I didn't see any of them at the show being flipped, so I have no idea. If you bought one, you'll have to let me know in the comments. I think that largely wraps it up. I'm probably missing a maker or two, or I'm missing like a specific knife from a maker that people want me to talk about. I'm sorry, this is just all from memory, all off the dome. There was a lot of stuff there. I didn't get a chance to see all of it, but there were some cool Balisongs to try. And I hope that if you went, you tried some cool Balisongs. I hope if you didn't go, this maybe gives you a little bit of an insight into what they had there at the show. But I just wanted to make a video talking about the Balisongs because I didn't do that in my last Blade Show update, so here you are. Until next time, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!